So it all comes down to this. The 27th of January, the big day is finally upon us. The World Sports Betting Cape Town met with 11 races of jam-packed fields with a pick six carryover attached to the meeting targeted pool of 10 million rand, and perhaps most importantly and most crucially, World Pools coming to the party as well. Not for the first time to Met Day, and not for the first time in South Africa. They normally attach themselves to the Gold Cup at Hollywood Bets Gravel, but those pools, those Win, Place, Swinger and Quinella, which is effectively the exacta, those numbers will be through the roof. And it's high quality action, as it always is. And for this Cape Racing panel discussion, I'm joined by probably one of the best minds in South African racing, if not the best, and the log-leading South African jockey, who I'll welcome in just a moment. Just before we get there, though, don't forget to subscribe to our Cape Racing page, and we'll give you all the content that you desire, all the content that you want, and listen to your suggestions as well, and potentially throw some of those into the mixer. We're going to start off with Richard Fere, who at the time of recording has ridden 146 winners for the season. He's on track for his targets of being crown champion jockey of South Africa. And if it continues this way, then just imagine the number that he'll end with. Richard, you won the Met last year on Jet Dark, and just your recollections of that 12 months ago. That was your first Met win as well. How did you feel crossing the line in front after just getting the edge over Comet Ding, his great rival?
Well, thank you for having me here today. It was an amazing feeling, getting my head down where it mattered the most. It was a tricky race, quite a bit muddy at the top of the straight, but you know, was on a crown champion, and he finished the race marginally, but it was still a winner.
And then Robert Bloomberg, back after his escapades at the Limaral Kings Plate, where the targets were well and truly set with a number of winners tipped by him and Jonathan Snaith. You haven't won a Met, which you said in the interlude, or in the rather the precursor to the Kings Plate panel discussion, but what's your greatest memory of this great race?
Firstly, Ellie, nice to be here. Nice to be with a similarly attired panelist, unlike the last person I sat next to, who wore a jacket, tie and his owner's badge. But to answer your question, I haven't had too many runners in the Met. I can remember African Lion, I remember Josh's Princess, who got beaten a length and a half by Zebra Crossing. But the most fond memory I have is a different story, and that was Mark Antony's victory, because I was a youngster in those days and very gung-ho, and I hired a restaurant and sent out invitations to 80 people during the course of the week, and the invitation read in honor of Mark Antony's victory. So I was tempting fate, but it wasn't close. So that's probably my most enjoyable memory.
And some are comparing this year's Met to that domination of Mark Antony during the 80s. Well, we shall see. We'll discuss that in a moment. Let's get through race number 1 on the card. It's the World Sports Betting Summer Juvenile Stakes, a listed feature over 1,100 metres, a big field, 16 plus 1 reserve card to face the starter. I want to start off with Richard Fere, because he takes a ride on number 2, Lion Rampart. But seeing as you get around the country and ride as many horses as you do, you've put a leg over Proceed in a race, you put a leg over number 12, Cold Shine. Great to have Danny Muscat here riding for his father, Peter Muscat. But you've stuck with Lion Rampart, and you know, what is it with him running in a straight line or not running in a straight line, and the convincing nature that he put together last time out when shedding his maiden tag?
Yeah, look, he's a young and upcoming horse. I think I am very drawn to the way he's bred. You know, he's a one world. You saw him last time. First time out and last time, he was green all over the place, hung both ways, jumped the line, jumped the patch. You know, and since then, since Kings Plate Day, I've been at track. I've felt more of him, understand more of him now. So yes, he was quite a nervous horse. You know, obviously drawn a little bit on the inside, could be a bit concerning, but I think he's just going to be a maturing type, and he's going to keep blossoming and growing into a better horse. And obviously, the likes of Muscat's son coming down from England, obviously, you know, Mr. Muscat putting his son on the horse is obviously, you know, to help his son on the day to have a memorable day as well. So it wasn't much of a choice. I just liked the way that horse finished it off last time with me, and Lion Rampart is, you know, like I say, a progressive type.
Robert, there's quite a lot of form to work with here, and also quite convincing juvenile form. Obviously, a lot more 2-year-olds will step out in the coming months, and we'll separate the wheat from the chaff. But it looks like there's quite a bit of wheat in race number 1.
Probably, Ali, but I still think it comes down to a match race or a rematch between Lion Rampart and Roman Agent. Lion Rampart having beaten Roman Agent by a length and 3/4 when they met. The difference being that Lion Rampart was having his second outing and Roman Agent was making his debut. And I think that the extra 100 meters will suit Roman Agent more. And, he's a bit more experienced now. I don't see anything reversing with Roman Agent on their last run. I know that the Muscat horse, Cold Shine, showed tremendous pace last time and was only touched off late. But again, I think the extra 100 meters is going to fall into the hands of Roman Agent. And I don't see the filly Sweetie Darling even being 4 pounds better off at the weights reversing either. So I think it's a match in 2. I think either 2 could win. But I went for Roman Agent last time when I made mention that I thought that 5-1 was a crazy price and that he would start under 2-1, which he did. And if you look at the betting now, Lion Rampart in the region of 18-10, 2-1 versus Roman Agent in the region of 7-2. Roman Agent represents a lot more value. I think he's likely to shorten again. And I think you will get better Lion Rampart. So a match in 2, but I'm going for Roman Agent to reverse with Lion Rampart this time.
Okay, so pretty much singing from the same hymn sheet, expecting that form to work out from Hollywood Bet's Cape Guineas Day. On we go to race number 2. This is the first leg of the bipot, the Cape Racing Sales Cape Slipper, for a stake of R1.25 million, 1,200 meters the distance, and a packed field of 20. And here we don't have too much form to work with. More than half the field are unraced going into this. So I'm going to start off with you, Robert, before we get to Richard, who obviously holds the key. Looks like he might hold the key with Talk to the Master. But before Richard shows his hand, are you going with number 6, Talk to the Master? Is that the most compelling piece of form here?
Ali, I think it's a rematch between Handsome Prince and Talk to the Master, and I expect them to finish in that order again. They meet on the same terms. This time they're going the 1,200. I think the extra 200 will suit both horses. But I just felt that Handsome Prince has a bit more to offer as a horse. I'm not discounting Talk to the Master reversing the form, but my gut feel and instinct is that Handsome Prince is the right horse. And I actually think that odds of around about 7-2 are pretty generous. I think he's going to start a lot shorter than that, probably closer to 2-1. I do think Talk to the Master is the danger. Sounds like I'm going against Richard, having opposed him in race 1 and race 2 and tipped 2 Snaith juveniles. But I do think they should fight out the finish. The one horse that does interest me in this race is the first time is Sicily, 550,000 Rand, son of Rafif. And, that horse could be anything. One thing we know about Dean Canema is that he can ready them first time out over 1,200, as he's done on numerous occasions. So I have no idea if that horse is fancied or not, but certainly money comes for him. I do respect him.
And I think that's the key. Just watch the market with regard to the first-timers. For example, we've got a very closely related horse to see it again in the form of number 16, Lord Byron. And Louis Otwa takes a ride for Justin Snaith. But Richard, we spoke about Roman Agents in race number 1. Now, the mother of Roman Agents is all a secret. The mother of number 6, Talk to the Masters, can you keep it secret? So they sisters. Number 6, Talk to the Master, very pleasing run first time out. Got a length and a half to find with Handsome Prince, though. We sat on him at home. What have you felt?
I've sat on him quite a few times. You saw Handsome Prince last time out was a short favourite. I was 25-1. So obviously nothing was expected of the horse, and he ran a great second. And I've been on him at track quite a bit leading into this, and yeah, lovely sort of horse. One of those that I quickly try to snatch up and get ready for this sort of race.
You were very, very quick onto the phone, or your agent was quick onto the phone after that debut run. Watch out for this horse?
Yes, well, what happened was I actually just rode some regular track work, and Mr. Marshall allowed me to throw a leg over him and took him down the track, and didn't know who he was, but he ticked a couple of boxes, which I was quite happy about, and came back and asked about the horse and did some research, and yeah, Very fortunate to be able to get on him into a sort of race like this. But also saying that, you're taking on a whole bunch of horses that are unexposed, young horses, even, you know, you don't know. You're going into the abyss with a race like this, so anything can happen. But saying that, I'm quite pleased to where this horse is with his progress going into this race.
Okay, so that's good news. Sets up for those two horses, unless one of the first timers do look to be, or do turn out to be, very promising indeed. Then we go on to race number 3, the Shrips Politician Stakes, a Grade 3 over 1,800 metres. This the Derby trial for the Splash Out Derby, which will be at the end of February, and it's traditionally a very good race to which Cape Town 3-year-olds are going to come out and be progressive over a trip. We know Snow Pilot over a mile won the Hollywood Bets Cape Guineas, but what about when we get to the Derby and over 2,000 metres, and who's going to be those classic horses when we get to Durban? Richard, I'm going to start off with you here. You ran number 1, the Grey King, who's suddenly turned the corner. His maiden win was a maiden win from a bad draw, but it was appealing to the eye. But the way that he followed up was encouraging. Over 1,800 metres, though, is he up to it? There look to be horses that are obviously, you know, feature race tested, that have held their own at the level, but can the Grey King give them something to think about, yeah?
Yeah, look, I rode this horse quite a while back when I was working for Mr. Snaith still. He always looked like a horse that's going to need 2,000 metres plus, and the fact that he won 1,400 metres, surprising. But saying that, he's got an 87 rating, and there's horses in this race with some serious ratings. For me, biggest danger is Green with Envy. He's been tested. He's run against some of our best 3-year-olds around. Yeah, so it's a tricky race. Luckily, got a nice draw riding for the King's Club. But yeah, got a nice weight, so let's see if we can run in the money.
Robert, it's always looked like Green with Envy's been looking for this type of distance. He looks like he's got a lot of class about him as well. Might have been a trifle disappointing in the 2 feature races that he's running here at Hollywood Bets Kenilworth, but I think the bigger picture has always been leading up to the Splash Out Derby. Is he the horse to beat?
Definitely, Ali. He's come out of a Group 1, running in a Group 3 here, best handicapped, looking for more ground. Exactly what you said, a Derby kind of horse, so he'll love the extra 200 metres. Odds around about 22 to 10 is actually quite generous, and he's definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, the horse to beat. Look, there are some horses here who are progressive, who have bright futures. Harajuku, the Grey King, get impressed. But I think that the biggest 2 dangers are Call to Unite, who I think is probably better than his rating. I thought that Grant van Niekerk butchered the horse last time, to put it bluntly, and he could be better than rated. And then another horse that may well be under the radar, might not have won a strong race, but was actually very impressive, is Holding Thumbs. Quoted at double-figure odds. This horse could be anything. So if there is going to be an upset horse, that could be the horse.
Yeah, he's a good-looking horse. Remember him at the sales, Holding Thumbs. And it's a big test for him. Let's see if he's up to it. As we now move on to race 4, 10 million rand the target in that big pick 6. I think we might get a step above that. This is the World Sports Betting Best Odds Guaranteed Cape A Stakes over 1,400 metres, and they're horses that have been tried at feature race level here. And there's the perennial runner-up, or place getter rather, in the former number 4, At My Command. Running against Quasi for sure. This race looks tailor-made. Captain Fontaine's got to be a big player as well. Down the page, a few others that make some appeal. Robert, At My Command, what is it with him that he just fails to get his head in front?
Yeah, look, you know, last time, Ali, he was very well handicapped. I fancied him and he was touched off, and that seems to be the case with him most of the time. And again, he's very well weighted here. He's 8 pounds best in, and must be the horse to beat. The concern being the drop in trip now, back to 1,400. And you ask yourself, you know, what's going to come and nail him this time? To me, the horse to beat here is Quasi for sure. You don't get much more consistent than him, and he's pretty damn versatile. And I actually thought that Quasi for sure's last run in the Merchants behind Cosmic Highway was a cracking effort. So they would be my top 2 choices, At My Command and Quasi for sure. If there is going to be an upset here, a horse who could still be under the radar with the handicappers is Pomodoro's Jet. May not be necessarily well handicapped here, but he seems to be on the upgrade. was maybe a shade lucky to win in the boardroom last time, but his run prior to that, he beat Prometheus. And Prometheus has won twice since, very impressively, when Richard rode him last time. So with only 51.5 on his back, carrying the half a kg overweight and the odds of around about 16-1, he could be the value in the race.
Richard, you step on board number 7, Captain Fontaine. His earlier form, his younger days were excellent. In case then, when with Garth Puller, he was obviously supposed to be exported to Hong Kong. That all fell through. So we're here with him on Met Day. If he turns it on, puts his mind to it, and remembers who he was as a younger horse, he could very easily turn them over. You sat on him last time. What's your report card on him, and who are the horses to beat?
Well, look, he came off a bit of a layoff, moved up really well. I know he's a 6-year-old gelding. Got a lovely draw. For me, obviously, Quasi for sure, stands out, the best horse in the race. That last run was a fantastic run. I think if Calvin knew him better, he'd probably end up winning the race. He's a funny sort of horse. We didn't go that quick in that sprint, and if he'd maybe allowed him just to get going a little bit earlier, he probably would have finished off winning that race. But yeah, I think the 51 kilo plus half, obviously Pomodoros Jet. I don't believe in that last run's form line. I'm not a big fan of Rapidash, but saying that with 51 kilos drawn 3, you're already in the box. You can steal a kind of race like this. But at my command, forward rolling horse, he's fine with the distance. He's a Karori. He'll go the 1400 on his coconut. And then obviously as a roughie, myself, I'd add myself in. I think this horse has done enough improvement to run in the top 4.
Yep, no doubt he's capable. Just quickly, while we're talking about race 4, there'll be pace on with After the Rain. Generally this summer, what is it with the pace that's suddenly been on? The Cape Cool's almost a distant memory. Once or twice you've gone a false pace, but that'll happen anywhere, anytime, any race.
Day,
yeah, but generally Cape Cool's out the window.
Yeah, no, we've definitely stepped it up. The grass is quite short, track's running fast, the wind hasn't been so strong, but I think the Cape Southeast is starting to pick up now, showing face. But yeah, fast running track. Looking at these races, there's fast horses in these races, or some horses you can't really bring back. I can see good speed in this race, and leave it to the best horse in this race. So I think when I say all that, Quasi for sure just jumps out on me again.
Okay, there we go. Well, Richard's got no ride in race 5, the Pongratz Olympic Dual Stakes, a listed feature, which is a field of 16 and could well be the hardest leg of the pick 6. So Richard's got a reprieve here, because I'm not going to go to him unless he's got something to add, and if he does,
I can add something.
Oh, he can add something. Okay, we'll let Robert add something first, though.
Perfect.
Hard race 5, or is it? What do you make of it?
No, it is a very hard race, Ali. But as you know, I fancied Winter Cloud on King's Plate Day at 14-1. Was a bit disappointed she didn't get closer, but she was hardly disgraced. Didn't exactly have a clear passage in running, and ran a pretty decent 4th. So I have to go with her again, except this time she ain't 14-1. She's 7-2 favourite. But I still think that she's a big runner. I expect her to get the better of Shantastic, who's pretty consistent and has to be a threat. The upset, or the dark horse to me, or filly in the race, is Distant Winter. She's held by Winter Cloud on previous meetings, but if you also look back in her form line, you'll see that she has beaten October Morn at level weights. And October Morn, of course, won the race last time that Winter Cloud ran in. So last time out she ran in the Cape Fillies Guineas, drops back to the 1200, course and distance, 2 runs for a win in a second. So the value could lie with Distant Winter, but my first pick would still be Winter Cloud.
What do you do on the big day when you got no ride in a feature race? Man of your caliber.
Well, I probably didn't take the ride in case Aldo doesn't make the weight on Winter Cloud. 56.5 on a big day. So yeah, I try to keep myself available for an opportunity like that if it does come. If it doesn't, it's not like I could have won the race anyway. So I also like Winter Cloud, very strong in this race. Her early form is fantastic. She's got some horses at the weights so well, and make her probably one of the big ones on the day.
Okay, so maybe it's not so scary after all. Race number 5, on the card. As we go on to the 6th race, and this is the first Grade 1, the World Pool Cape Flying Championship over 1,000 metres. I'm really looking forward to this race because it's been a very compelling rivalry over the last year or so between Thunderstruck and Isi Vungu Vungu. They're back again. We also got the dynamic of Dice coming from Lucky Hudolakis' yard, rated 130. His win on Betway Summer Cup Day in the Merchants was out of the top draw. Obviously, Gladiatorian was the winner at Hollywood Bet Scottsville just a week before the Met. But Richard, you ride Isi Vungu Vungu. I think the natural first question to ask was there a bit of meat on the bone in that seasonal debut when Thunderstruck just outdid you?
Most definitely. He came off a very long layoff, and I think, last time he ran was the 30th of July. So it was all just part of preparation. Obviously, we go for the win. He jumped out and he was relaxed, and I looked to my left and Striker was sitting there in a pose. And through the 200 or so, I put on the juice, and he just didn't respond for me. He was at his maximum, and obviously Striker's horse started gaining momentum again, and put me to bed. But saying that, it's a whole couple of weeks later. I've had some good time with him back at home. Obviously found one or two little niggles, and Mr. Muscat and his team have been working on it, and he's a happy horse this time. So it's all systems go.
What was his best one, the computer form sprint over 1,000 metres or the Mercury over 12?
I think the Mercury, because he had an awkward draw, bounced him, took him forward, and in his young days he was quite an aggressive horse, and if you try that 2 years prior to that, he probably would have run away with you. But now he's a lot more mature, he waits for you. I think he possibly could have stolen that race, and it was just the cherry on the cake for us, winning that one.
Robert, is this a boat race or is it open-ended for one other? Maybe two others. How do you read it?
A boat race, Alistair, as I thought last time when the two of them met, and I mentioned that Thunderstruck was the value by virtue of the fact that he'd had a run, whereas Isi Vungu Vungu had been off for 5 months. Now with the run under the belt, I'm confident that Isi Vungu Vungu will reverse with Thunderstruck. They draw next to each other, so Pierre no doubt will be sitting right next to Richard waiting to pounce, but I don't think he's going to get to him this time. But it is a match in two.
And we've also got the former winner of this race, Rio Quirari, who every now and then shows signs of life, but it's a cracking Grade 1 event. Sounds like and it looks like Isi Vungu Vungu is the right one in the Cape Flying for 2024. Imagine that. Grade 1 winner in Joburg, Grade 1 winner in Durban, now to conquer South Africa in Cape Town. As we now go on to the city of Cape Town, Mallorca, over 1,600 metres, race number 7 off at 25 past 3. We've got the reigning horse of the year in the form of Princess Keller, reopposing number 11 Beach Bomb. I'm actually going to start with Richard here. We'll get to Robert first with the World Sports Betting Cape Met. Princess Keller versus Beach Bomb over 1,800 metres in the Paddock Stakes last time up. Beach Bomb had your number. Now, was the race initially run to plan for Princess Keller when the pacemaker just fell back? You were exposed early. What was your report card on that? Are you confident of turning it around? Or was Beach Bomb just proper good value for that win?
Yeah, look, she won well. Can't fault her on that. She still came from the back of the field, even though they went slow. They went 113 seconds, where standard time is like 110, so it's a good 3 seconds slower. But my main mission in that race was to make sure that she doesn't pull, so we can save all our energy for the finish. And she moved up well. She did everything great until there was the crunch time to ignite the afterburners and finish it off. But she just flattened out at that stage, and she ran to a mark where she couldn't get away from them through the 200, whereas normally by then she would have pulled 2-3 lengths on them at that stage. So yeah, wasn't her best run, even though she ran a good second. The third horse was right on top of me. I think another 2 strides I ended up running third. But we've had sufficient time now to focus on her and her well-being and getting her ready for this race, and I feel a lot more confident going into this race than the last time.
The best version of Princess Keller would win this, Robert. Probably hasn't quite been in her best, despite the valid excuses that she's had along the way. And then what about Red Palace? And then what about Make It Snappy, the two-time Grade 1 winner who hasn't run in a year, granted. Is this a bit more complicated than just the reigning horse of the year and the filly who toppled her last time?
Well, before I answer your question, Ali, I want to ask Richard something. How critical are you of your riding? Do you fall into the category of Anton Marcus, who used to self-flagellate, go home, beat himself up, lock himself in a room and sulk if he thought he'd ridden a bad race? Or do you fall into the category of Grant van Niekerk, who just laughs, doesn't give a damn, says punters are throwing stones at him and goes off and has lunch? Or do you fall into the category of a Greg Sheen who's never ridden a bad race in his life? How critical are you of yourself?
Well, I'll take everything into consideration. I'll admit to when I do ride a bad race. I think that's the first steps of recovery. Yeah, I'd look at every single aspect, every little thing that went wrong, and just make sure that that doesn't happen again. So yes, I will be hard on myself, but also forgiving at the same time, because it's split-second decisions, and you know, we're human. It's human error. But at the end of the day, not everything is where it's supposed to be. It's very difficult to win these Group 1s. You know, everything has got to be exactly on point, and you know, then it looks easy. So I'd like it to look easy, and then you know, we don't have to get to that point where we need to beat ourselves up and lock ourselves in rooms or deny any bad ride. But yeah, I'll hard and soft on myself, knowing if I could have done more or if I should have done less.
So with that in mind, and in my opinion, and I'm not a jockey, I actually thought that Anthony Andrews stuffed the race up for you last time by fighting a big long striding filly. That had she gone to the front, it would have been a different result. Having said that, do you not think, and whilst I understand why you took it up early, that you should have maybe sat a bit longer?
Yeah, look, I did take the speed up a little bit as we came into the straight, because we've gone so slow. I've got 60 kilos. I'm giving a lot of weight away to a lot of horses, and I thought, let me get her into her stride. So it was basically riding a piece of pacework up the straight as to getting her stride going, getting her in her comfort zone, and then through the 400, 350 start doing some work. And I thought I did it right, but obviously it backfired on me, being the 1800, you know, which is not a optimum distance, and you know, I couldn't shake them off, even though as much as I believed in her and thought that I could literally get that last bit out of her, it was a bit impossible to achieve, giving away so much weight and being an older mare. But you know, like you say, should I have sat longer? Perhaps, most definitely, and allowed them to come at my heels before I asked for a bit of effort, or do I do what I did and you know, I get beat? So it was a tricky one, because just now they move up to me, or they put a lot of pressure on the top of the straight early, and then I have to carry a longer sprint than allowing her to use her action into the 400, 350 before I make her work. So it was a very quick decision that I had to make. If I'd won, I'd be the hero, but unfortunately I got beat.
So Alistair, I think that this time with the drop-in trip to a mile, whereas there's some people who say Princess Keller doesn't get an 1800, and I don't see how they can say that, considering that you won the Champions Cup. You can see it again.
Can I say something? Sorry.
Sure.
She did come from altitude. She was trained in Johannesburg and then went into the Champions Cup, where all the, obviously the Olivet Pets Durban July runners were running, and they probably all tapped out, and she was fit and ready to go.
But you would agree with me that she's better over a mile?
Oh, without a doubt.
Right. So on that basis, there are a lot of people who are saying, you know, she's not at her best. You're listening to all of that. The way the race unfolded in the Paddock Stakes, I think that Beach Bomb was a lucky winner. I think this race is going to be run differently. I'll be very surprised if Red Palace does not dictate and go to the front. And I think wherever they run, Red Palace will run in front of Beach Bomb this time. And I think that Red Palace is the biggest danger to Princess Keller. I prefer Princess Keller. I think she's got the class, but I have great respect for Red Palace if she's allowed to dictate from the front.
Fascinating. This panel discussion suddenly turned into a courtroom there. And the insight was out of the top drawer. So there we go. Princess Keller, hopefully to come back to winning ways and score yet another Grade 1 in what has been an illustrious career. Now moving on to the Gold Rush, the Cape Racing Gold Rush, for a stake of R7.5 million. Of course, this race restricted to horses that were sold in the Cape Racing sales 18 months ago, 2 years ago now. And here we go with a field of 16 carded to face the starter plus 3 reserves. Everyone dying for a scratching, but obviously not guaranteed to happen. Now we've got a Grade 1 winner in the form of Bavarian Beauty here, Robert. Pierre Stradum takes her out for Tony Peter. She went down to Durban. She won the Douglas White Tigweni Stakes, beating Egyptian Mao by a length and a half. She's only had the one run this season, been off for 76 days. But without doubt, that's the best form on offer here. How hard is she going to be to beat?
Alistair, the question is this a similar scenario to Mrs. Geriatrics, who with respect to the connections doesn't appear to have trained on? You must remember that Bavarian Beauty obtained a rating winning the Queenie against 2-year-old fillies. She's had one comeback run since then. She beat another level from your stable by only a length. Another level was giving her £7. The talk, though, behind the scenes, is that this is the best horse in the Tony Peter yard, that she's the best horse they've trained, and that she's better than Summer Pudding. And they are quite brash about the fact they come in here to take the money, or I suppose you could put it another way, to rob Peter to pay Paul, if you pardon the expression. And they are extremely confident. So on that basis alone, you have to give her great respect. But to me, the jury's out in respect of her 2-year-old form and whether that's going to be carried forward. I don't know what to make of Taylor the Comet. Started favourite for a Group 1. Richard will be better placed to say whether he thinks the horse gets a mile or not. Certainly, I don't think he'll be going to the front this time. But it's a considerable drop in class. I won't put Richard on the spot and ask him about the stories that do the rounds that the horse sticks up in the morning and doesn't work, because he said off camera that he doesn't ride the horse in work at all. But you obviously have to respect Taylor the Comet.
And I want to get to Richard with the same question with Taylor the Comet. Your horse qualifies in the category in this race of very, very, very smart horse, not guaranteed to get the trip.
Well, what is interesting was the first time that Richard won on the horse for me, he told me the horse would stay any trip. The second time he won it for me, he was very hesitant about the mile. The third time he rode the horse, apparently he said to Tony Rivelin, "This is a champion sprinter. I don't know why you're trying to make the horse stay." Richard will tell you if that's correct or not. There are 5 million reasons why we tried to make the horse stay here. We got a ticket into the race through World Sport Betting, and things didn't map out last time. He was drawn wide. We had a choice: either drop him out or try and overcome the draw. The trouble is he's got such gate speed, this horse, that we basically had no choice. He then didn't get, once he'd got across fairly effortlessly, he didn't have cover, and then he got bumped by Vaughan Marshall's horse twice at the top of the straight, and that sort of fired him up a bit. I can tell you that in work, and we've galloped him over 1,500 meters and 14 on the cinders, 1,400 meters here, no problem, he drops the bit. But a race is a different story. I can categorically tell you we are not going to the front. I think we've got the right rider on board. I'd love to have had Richard, but Richard was committed to Taylor the Comet. But in Gavin Larena, I think we've got a jock who will suit the horse, who hopefully will be able to settle him. And if he can be settled, he's got the turn of foot that it's not impossible, because I do think he's a hell of a good horse. And I think he's the kind of horse in future, and if things don't map out here, we just go back to sprinting. the Golden Horse Casino Sprint at Scottsville off bottom weight in the season. That's a race that looks tailor-made for him. So I do think he's a runner. The only other 2 horses in the race that I can possibly give a chance to is Rapidash, because I know he stays a mile. There's so many horses in this race that have stamina doubts, and Infrared, because he definitely stays a mile.
And he was unlucky last time as well. Richard, extending on that conversation about King of the Gauls and a trip, the same thing goes with number 8, Taylor the Comet. Very, very good horse. Quite a quirky horse, as we've seen on the races before. But who's got the inside track to winning the Gold Rush?
Infrared. I know he's only running off for 88, but he stays. Lovely horse. And obviously Rapidash, his last run. But I'm not a fan of him. I know he's a tricky horse. You know, so coming back to King of the Gauls, beautiful horse. Saw him this morning again. He looks like a sprinter. He's just got a lot of speed in him at the moment. But last time when I rode him, I think if we jumped him and just, you know, from that bad draw, you know, take him back, leave him alone at the back, and, you know, see what he does, he would have run right on top of him. He is a nice horse. I can't wait to see this horse's career unfold. I really think highly of this horse. And then Taylor Comet, going to be loyal to the syndicate. Beautiful horse. He's obviously highly strong himself as well. He's got a lot of speed in him. I also think he's a very good sprinter. But if we can just get him to sleep a little bit longer and come into the straight and let him unwind and run his race, you'll be right there at the finish.
Speed are going to be an issue in this race with all the stamina darts?
Look, there's 5 million reasons for them not to go slow. So I think the speed will be on in the beginning, and obviously midsection somewhere they're going to drop anchors, which is usually the case in this race, and then they're going to make a sprint for it. So it's just going to be ready for it.
Survival of the fittest at the end. Now we go on to 4:45 local time for the World Sports Betting Cape Town Met over 2,000 metres. It looks like the See It Again show. It should be the See It Again show, but will it be the See It Again show? Is there an alternative totally off radar that we need to give a bit more attention to?
When you look at this race, you can't see past See It Again. There's just nothing else around to give him any cheek. So I think the race is more for second, third and fourth.
Who's underappreciated bar See It Again in this race? Who's okay, by virtue of the market and the nature of the race, everything else is going to be at a big price. Who do you think we've got to give a bit more attention to potentially run into the money?
Yeah, look, Montaigne got a hiding at the handicapper. Rascallion, his last run last year, to Jetok, he had heaps of interference. He got beat 2 lengths. He comes from a wide draw. After that, Royal Aussie, stamina doubts. I don't know if he's capable. I think if they do ride him cold like last time and he runs a good race, you know, he can be right up there. Almatana is a very good miler, but saying that, last year in the same race, also heaps of trouble. Mucha Dinero, 20 points for the last win. I don't know. He does run on nicely, but at weight for age, he's way out of it. So Anfield's Rocket, left alone, he could run on. Yeah, there's not much really. In double superlative last time, had him forward in a fast-running King's Plate. I think he'll be a lot fitter and one of those horses you can include in the quartets.
Robert does look like the See It Again show. Shortest priced Met favourite in quite a while. You spoke about Mark Anthony at the top of the show. So let's assume that you're going to tip See It Again. You'll put your cards on the table now. What passed him in this race? What do you make of the rest?
Okay, so we're going to deal with the second and third first.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me first say that one thing I learned from Dunford's time was that the July, I call it a bastardized handicap because it's a handicap with certain conditions attached to it, is it's always tailor-made for a 4-year-old that comes in off bottom weight, 53 kgs. With that in mind, I was very surprised that they accepted with Mucho Dinero. You know, he's gone to 110. He's basically got 8 pounds to play with. But See It Again's not the kind of horse that's going to win the Met by 5 lengths. He's not that kind of horse. And Mucho Dinero gets 3 to 4 lengths behind See It Again, and suddenly the horse is 124. They take in a gamble. I'm not entirely convinced the horse will actually even start. Same owner as See It Again. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's there as backup in case something goes wrong. But if he does run and take his place, I think he'll run second. And Richard mentioned Montien. It doesn't matter that the handicapper zapped him last time because it's a weight for age contest. I think this horse has got something. You know, if you look at his sprint behind Cosmic Highway, that was a hell of a sprint in the Merchants. And he ran damn well in the King's Plate as well. So if you're looking for a roughie at a big price, 33 to 1 to run into the money, I think it could be him. But as far as the winner is concerned, MJ interviewed me in the parade ring just before the Green Point. And I didn't expect See It Again to win the Green Point because I knew that was never his mission. But I said to him that day on air that I thought that See It Again was nailed on to win the Met. He was 3 to 1 at that point in time. When we did the King's Plate show, I said that with Charles Dickens still in the race, I said that I thought See It Again was the biggest certainty since Mark Antony and Horse Chestnut. I'm not going to deviate from any of that. I'm not going to try and be clever because I didn't think that Charles Dickens would take his place in the Met. This horse is 2 out of 2 over the trip. Won the Derby over 2,000, won the Daily News over 2,000. There's just no opposition. I think that the 11 draw suits the horse down to the ground because Pierre will be a length or two further back than he would have been had he cracked a draw. I just don't see anything beating this horse in this race.
Does look that way. No such thing as a racing certainty, but all the expectations and all the support is with number 11, See It Again, in the 2024 World Sports Betting Cape Met. As we now go on to the New Tef Carriers Western Cape Stayers, a grade 3 over 2,800 metres, a field of 13 to face the starter. Richard, I'm going to start with you. You run number 3, Aragosta. That was a mess in the Chairman's. The pace was so slow. Then one horse went, slowed it up again. Then you went. From there, you needed all the luck in the world. Can Aragosta bounce back? He is a grade 1 winner over the extended trip, the only one in the race.
Yeah, look, he can. He's a bit sluggish out. Last time he was sluggish out, and I was at the back of the field before we even finished the first bend, and I wasn't happy about the speed, so I progressed up forward, went and sat up second, knowing that the speed is false, and then tried to make a sprint of it, and he's not that type of horse. I probably should have gone after him a bit earlier, maybe at the 1,000, take it over and let him stretch. But saying that, was his second run in Cape Town, and usually the high-fold horses, when they do come here, their second run is a bit of a lull. But I do think he's well weighted this time. He's a fitter horse, happier horse, so looking very forward to this one.
Robert, it's always a tricky race. It's a complex race. It shouldn't be because of the conditions of the race. The spread of weights is obviously not as vast as it is in the other staying races through the Cape summer season. So does it all point to Aragosta here?
Alistair, if you look strictly at the weights, Aragosta 6 pounds best in from Nebraska. But this race, this summer stayers, or whatever it's called, every year changes its name, New Turf, Western Cape, stayers race, throws up upsets year in, year out. It is frightening the results that this race has thrown up. I remember winning this race with a horse years ago, drawn 15 out of 15, with Pit Buerta up, called Shadow Shooter. Horse was any price, had no right to win. And this happens more often than not. It's a crazy race where you can simply not discount anything. Don't even look at the weights, because literally anything can win. If you held a gun to my head, yes, I have to go for Aragosta because of the weights, and I would think that triple time is probably the biggest danger, then maybe Nebraska and one-way traffic. But knowing what I know about past results in this race, I wouldn't want to have a bet here.
Okay, so that's the 10th race on the card. It is obviously an important race because as far as the World Pools are concerned, that'll be the finale. Before we go into race number 11, which will be a locally hosted race as far as the Tote Pools, the World Sports Betting Bet with the best maiden plate over 1,200 metres, and in a field of 20, there's Richard Fere sitting in the jockey room. So I won't ask Richard about the last race because by now he's hopefully got a bit of silverware in the luggage and ready to enjoy his nights on the back of the World Sports Betting Cape Town Met. So Robert, the pressure's all on you. A field of 20. You've got number 17, the US of A. We were chatting off air. What a strong maiden this looks like when they're just winners in waiting all the way across the page.
So this is an unbelievable maiden race. I don't know when I can last recall such a strong field for a maiden. And this is definitely going to be a form line to follow. You can make a case for 10 horses winning this race. I see that Speed Race is currently top of the boards. Can certainly win, but I've given up on Speed Race. Has had enough chances for me. I think they're less exposed horses in the race. Peregrine Falcon made an excellent debut behind Amber Rock and has any amount of improvement. Apparently is highly rated by the stable.
Green Falcon and Silver Falcon's family.
Yep.
Falcon.
And if you like that, then you've got to like your Guguletu. The only question mark I have about that is that the 3 horses that came out of that race that all ran in a very poor work riders the other day. Consigliere, which actually ran 3rd, Captain Cool and Carpso Hoop. And so I started asking myself the question as to, whether that's a form line worth following or not. Star Performer is definitely not chanceless. Neither is Ice Rain, neither is Celtic Chief. Riverstone wasn't given much assistance, with the greatest respect, in the ladies' race. And then you get to my horse, the US of A, who we do rate. He's run on really well in both outings, and it's sort of odds around about 10 to 1. He might be worth an each-way nibble. Then, of course, there's Hoodia, that finished right in front of Star Performer last time, has finished runner-up in both starts. And, of course, there's the unraced horse King's Boy by Kingman, who could be anything. So to try and make a selection in this last race is absolutely crazy. I don't know.
Well, there we go. Don't know to finish. Hopefully, Richard and Robert have made you a lot of money in the 10 races preceding that. So that is your World Sports Betting Cape Town Met panel discussion. Thank you very much to Robert and to Richard for that time. We'll be back with lots more, but we hope to see you here at Hollywood Bets Kenilworth on Saturday the 27th of January for the 2024 World Sports Betting Cape Town Met. Till next time, goodbye.